The microwave clock was flashing 10:56 p.m. when that first knot of worry hit my stomach. My wife had sent me a text around 7 o'clock that evening, mentioning she'd be home late because some work thing turned into happy hour with the office crew. It seemed normal enough at the time. She's in marketing for a tech company downtown, so these last-minute get-togethers happen pretty often. But then midnight rolled around and passed. By 2 o'clock, I was just sitting there on the living room sofa with some late-night talk show blaring. I wasn't even watching it. I just needed the background noise to drown out the silence, which was starting to feel heavy. I'd already tried calling her twice. Both calls went straight to her greeting, which meant her phone was either out of juice or someone had manually turned it off. I sent a text too, but got nothing back. That little delivered icon just sat there on the screen, almost like it was mocking me. By 2:30 a.m., I actually started calling around to hospitals. I know that sounds like I'm being dramatic, but my brain was spiraling into some pretty dark territory. I was picturing car wrecks, muggings, anything that could explain why my wife of 7 years would just disappear without a word. None of the hospitals had anyone matching her description. Part of me should have felt better hearing that. Instead, a different kind of sickness settled in my gut. I tried to talk myself down, thinking maybe her phone just died and she couldn't find a charger. Maybe she'd had a few too many and a coworker was just looking out for her. I even thought maybe she just crashed at her friend Chloe's place and forgot to check in. But Chloe lives 20 minutes from the city, and my wife would have just borrowed a phone to call me. She's the type who would have found a way to get a message through. By 4 a.m., I couldn't sit still anymore and started pacing. The apartment felt like it was shrinking, the walls moving in on me. I kept going over to the window to check the street 7 floors down, hoping I'd see her car pull up. The city was mostly dead at that hour, aside from the odd taxi or a siren off in the distance. I ended up making a pot of coffee that I didn't even touch. I was restless, sitting down, standing up, pacing some more. I'd grab my phone, stare at it, and put it back down. I kept wondering if I should call the cops or if I was just overreacting. But there was this one thought circling in the back of my head, the one I kept trying to bury. What if she just didn't want to come home? I thought we were happy. I mean, sure, we've had our ups and downs. Every couple has those after 7 years. She'd been putting in a lot of overtime lately, but she just landed a promotion to senior marketing director 6 months back. More responsibility meant more hours at the office, and I got that. I was behind her 100%. But then there were the little things I'd noticed but decided to ignore. She started dressing differently for work, putting more effort into her makeup and buying clothes I'd never seen. She'd also started tilting her phone away from me when she was texting, something she never used to do. Then there was that night she came home smelling like a cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She brushed it off, saying someone at the office gave her a hug. I believed her because I wanted to. I didn't want to think about what the alternative meant. At 5:15 a.m., the sky started to turn that pale, washed-out gray you see right before dawn. I was still on the couch, wearing the same clothes from the day before, just waiting. My phone was sitting on the coffee table, dark, quiet, and still. Then, at 6:02 a.m., it finally buzzed. I lunged for it so fast I almost fumbled it onto the floor. Her name was right there on the screen. Finally. But when I opened the message, that relief I was looking for never showed up. Instead, I felt like my blood turned to ice. I stayed at a hotel. We need to talk. 7 words. That was all it took to confirm the fears I'd been fighting all night. People don't check into hotels in their own city unless they're hiding something. And they definitely don't send cryptic "we need to talk" texts unless the conversation is going to be a total nightmare. I just sat there, staring at those 7 words, reading them over and over like they might magically change into something else. They didn't. They just sat there cold and final, as the sun started to come up. My hands were shaking while I typed back. "Which hotel? Are you okay?" Those 3 little dots popped up immediately, then vanished, then came back. This went on for a solid minute, her typing, stopping, and starting again. Finally, a response came through. "I'm fine. The Meridian downtown. I'll be home around noon. We'll talk then," she said. The Meridian. That's a high-end luxury spot with a rooftop bar and rooms that start at $400 a night. That's not the kind of place you just crash at because you're tired. I knew that because I'd actually looked into booking a room there for our anniversary last year but decided it was way out of our budget. Something was wrong. Actually, everything was wrong. I pulled up our bank app on my phone. We kept our personal spending separate, but we had a joint account for bills and emergencies. The credit card for that account was one we both used. My finger hovered over the transaction history for a second. Part of me wanted to stop right there, to stay ignorant for just a little longer. But I looked anyway. There it was. A charge from 11:43 p.m. last night. The Meridian Grand Hotel for $485. But that wasn't the only one. At 10:17 p.m. there was a charge for $340 at Sapphire Spa and Wellness. And before that, at 7:30 p.m. a bill for $218 at Russo's Fine Dining. I felt like I'd been kicked in the teeth. This wasn't some snap decision to get a room because she was too exhausted to drive. This whole thing was a plan. A spa visit, an expensive dinner, a luxury suite, this was a date. It just wasn't a date with me. I stood up, my brain foggy from lack of caffeine, trying to make sense of it all. Over $1,000 spent in one night. While I was sitting at home, losing my mind and calling hospitals, she was getting pampered at a spa and eating at one of the most romantic spots in town. Then my phone buzzed again. It wasn't a text from my wife this time. It was an Instagram notification. Someone had tagged her in a picture. I usually didn't care much about her social media, but under the circumstances, I opened it up. The photo was posted by Natalie Vance, a coworker of hers I'd met a couple of times. The caption said, "Team dinner turned into quite the night." There was a wineglass emoji, and it was posted at 8:47 p.m. I zoomed in. There were about 8 people at a long table at Russo's. I recognized those marble walls and the gold lighting anywhere. And there she was on the left side of the table. She was wearing a deep red dress I'd never laid eyes on. Her hair done up in waves, laughing. And sitting right next to her, close enough that their shoulders were touching, was him. I knew the guy, Julian Thorne. He was the creative director who'd started at her company about 8 months ago. She'd brought him up a few times in passing, how Julian had interesting ideas for a rebrand or how Julian suggested a new approach for a campaign. It was always Julian this, Julian that. I'd noted it, but I never said a word. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, controlling husband. But looking at that photo, seeing how cozy they were and how she was leaning toward him with his hand on the back of her chair, it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I zoomed in even more. There were wine glasses and several bottles on the table. Her face was flushed, and her eyes were bright. She looked happy. I mean, really, truly happy. When was the last time she'd looked at me that way? I scrolled through the other tags. There were a few more shots from the dinner, the group getting louder and more drinks appearing. But in every single picture where my wife appeared, Julian was right there beside her. Then I found it. A photo someone else posted at 10:03 p.m. Most of the group had left, leaving only 4 people at the table. My wife and Julian were 2 of them, sitting incredibly close. His arm was clearly wrapped around her shoulders. The caption read, "The party people keeping it going," along with a party popper emoji. I felt sick. Like, physically, deep in my gut sick. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was doubled over the toilet, dry heaving. It was like my body was trying to reject the information my brain couldn't handle. Once I got my breathing under control, I splashed some cold water on my face and caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I looked like a ghost of the guy I used to be. Tired, hollow, and way older than 34. I gripped the porcelain so hard my knuckles went white. She'd lied to me. Maybe she didn't say the words, but she'd played me with the gaps in her story. A late night at the office was actually a romantic dinner. The team was just him. "I'll be home soon" turned into a night at a hotel. I grabbed my phone off the counter and stared at that text one more time. I stayed at a hotel. "We need to talk." Oh, we were definitely going to talk. But it wasn't going to go the way she thought. I wasn't walking into this blind. I had the bank records, the photos, and the proof of a night that had zero to do with her job and everything to do with cheating. I had 6 hours before she'd be standing in our living room. That was 6 hours to figure out my next move. 6 hours before our marriage either hit a wall or went over a cliff. I walked into the bedroom, reached into the back of the closet, and hauled out my suitcase. It hit the mattress with a heavy thud that seemed to ring through the whole quiet apartment. I just stood there looking at it, my mind bouncing between being dead certain and having these flashes of doubt. Was I jumping the gun? Should I let her explain herself? But deep down, I already knew the deal. I'd spent 7 years learning how she ticked. I knew her habits and her tells. Each handful felt heavier than the last, like the weight of what I was doing was literally sinking into the fabric. I'm packing my bags to leave my marriage. The thought just kept looping in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. Then my phone buzzed again. It was another text from her. I know you're mad. I can explain everything. Please just wait for me. I almost let out a laugh. Mad is what you get when someone forgets to pick up milk or finishes the last of the leftovers. This was so far beyond mad that the word didn't even fit. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reply. Instead, I went into the bank app and took screenshots of every single charge. Then I hopped over to Instagram and saved every photo from the night before. Evidence. I was basically building a legal case against my own wife. The logical part of my brain tried to play devil's advocate. Maybe the hotel was just because she was too buzzed to drive. Maybe Julian was just being a pal and the camera angles made it look worse than it was. Maybe the spa thing was a work perk I didn't know about. But a mountain of maybes doesn't add up to the truth. They're just excuses. I started thinking back over the last few months, seeing everything through a different lens. Those Tuesday night emergencies that happened every single week. That new, expensive perfume she started wearing, the one she said a friend recommended. Even the 6 a.m. gym sessions where she'd come home looking more alive and energized than I'd seen her in years. She'd been glowing lately. I thought it was just the promotion and her career taking off. Now it all clicked. She was glowing because she was leading a double life, and the thrill of it had brought back a spark I hadn't realized was gone. Man, I'd been a total moron. Or maybe I just didn't want to see it because the truth was too much to take. I went to the closet and started pulling down my suits and my shirts still in the dry cleaning plastic. I had to work on Monday, assuming I could even pull myself together by then. But where was I even supposed to go? We moved here together. We built this life together. All our friends were couple friends. Both our names were on the lease. Trying to untangle 7 years of a shared life felt like a mountain I couldn't climb. My phone started ringing. This time it wasn't a text. It was an actual call. I stared at her name on the screen. The caller ID photo was from our honeymoon in Greece. We were both sunburnt and grinning, with the bright blue sea behind us. Felt like a different lifetime. Like we were two different people in a different world. I hit decline. She called right back. I declined it again. Then a text came through. Please pick up. You're scaring me. She was scared? The irony was almost funny. I typed back, Russo's, the Meridian, Sapphire Spa, $1,043 total. Sounds like a hell of a work event. The 3 dots appeared, then went away, then came back. They stayed there for nearly 3 minutes. I could practically see her sitting in that hotel room, sweating, trying to figure out how to spin this or what lie would fix it. Finally, it's not what it looks like. I swear. Just let me explain in person. Did you sleep with him? I sent it before I could talk myself out of it. Straight to the point. That was the question that had been eating a hole in my chest since I saw that first photo. No 3 dots this time. Just total silence. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5. That silence was the only answer I needed. I sat down on the edge of the bed next to my half-packed bag and buried my face in my hands. Even with all the proof, the dinner, the spa, the $1.5 grand bill, part of me was still hoping I was wrong. I wanted her to have some miracle story that made it all okay. But she couldn't even give me a no. Then the phone rang again. I almost ignored it, but for some reason I picked up. Maybe I needed to hear the words. Maybe I just needed to know for sure. Don't say anything, she blurted out the second I answered. Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying. Just listen. Please. I made a massive mistake. The worst one of my life. But it's not what you think. Did you sleep with him? I asked again. My voice was weirdly steady. Yes or no? Silence. Then we just got carried away. The wine, the night. It just happened. But it was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. I love you. I love our life. This didn't mean anything. I hung up. My hands didn't even shake as I laid the phone face down on the bed. I felt strangely calm, like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. That confirmation should have broken me. I should have been screaming or throwing things. Instead, I just felt hollow. 7 years. 7 years down the drain for a spa day and a hotel room with some guy from the creative department. I stood back up and went back to packing. The apartment had never been this quiet. Every little noise sounded like a gunshot. The fridge humming, the cars outside, the clock ticking in the hall. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, sorting my life away from hers. Books off the shelf, mine on the left, hers on the right. That special edition Hemingway she bought me? Did I even want it? I left it there. The concert tickets for next month that were pinned to the corkboard? Useless now. I pulled them down and let them flutter into the trash. It was 9:30 a.m. 2.5 hours until she got home. And my phone just wouldn't stop buzzing. The messages just kept coming, one after another, getting more desperate by the minute. I'm so sorry. Please don't do this. 7 years has to count for something. It was just one night, one stupid night. We can get past this. I'll do whatever it takes. Don't just throw us away. I flipped the phone face down on the wooden coffee table, but I could still hear the vibration buzzing against the grain. Eventually, I just shut the thing off. The silence that hit the room afterward was almost worse than the buzzing. I sat there on the couch with my 4th cup of coffee, letting my mind go to Julian Thorne. I'd met the guy once, briefly, at her office holiday party last December. He was tall, carried himself with a lot of confidence, wore a watch that probably cost more than my car, and he definitely knew it. He'd given me a firm handshake and chatted about the Celtics game, and I hadn't thought twice about it. To me, he was just another guy from her office. Had things started back then? Or was this a newer thing? I felt like a total idiot wondering how long I'd been the only person who didn't know what was going on. I opened my laptop and did that one thing you're never proud of. I started digging into his social media. His LinkedIn was the usual corporate stuff. A professional headshot and a resume that looked like he was a real go-getter. His Instagram was locked down, but his Facebook was wide open. There were photos of him hiking, hitting up fancy craft cocktail bars, and riding an expensive road bike. No relationship status. No signs of a girlfriend or a wife. He was a free agent. Successful, single, and exactly the kind of guy who could get a married woman's attention if she was looking for a distraction. I slammed the laptop shut. None of this was helping. Fixating on him wasn't going to change the facts. My phone, even though it was off, felt like it was humming with energy on the table. I turned it back on and saw 12 new texts, 3 missed calls, and 2 voicemails. I didn't bother reading or listening to any of them. Instead, I went to my contacts and found my older brother's number. He lives 2 states over, but we've always been tight. I knew he'd have some perspective, or at the very least, he'd just let me vent. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Hey, little brother. What's the word? I opened my mouth to tell him, but the words got stuck. After 7 hours of feeling totally numb, I finally cracked. She cheated on me, I managed to say. My wife. She spent last night with someone else. The whole story just came pouring out of me. The waiting, the texts, the credit card charges, the photos, and the call where she finally owned up to it. My brother just listened. He didn't interrupt once. When I was done, there was a long pause on the other end. Are you 100% sure you want to walk out today? He finally asked. Maybe you should hear her out first. She already admitted it, I snapped. What else is there to hear? I'm not taking her side, he said, keeping his voice calm. What she did is garbage. But you've been married 7 years. Don't you think you owe it to yourself to have the talk, even if the result stays the same? I'm not saying do it for her. Do it for you. so you don't spend the rest of your life wondering if you pulled the trigger too fast. I hated that he made sense. That's the problem with having a lawyer for a brother. He always has a point. Where are you going to go? He asked. I hadn't even thought that far. A hotel, I guess. Then, I don't know. Come up here, he said immediately. Pack your bags, get in the car, and just drive. You can stay as long as you need to. Beth and I will look after you. The kindness in his voice almost got to me again. I appreciate that. I really do. I need to see this through first. We talked for a few more minutes, and he made me promise to call him later. I checked the time after we hung up. 11:15 a.m. 45 minutes to go. I took one last walk through the apartment, seeing everything differently now. The framed photos of our wedding, the trips we took, the dinners with friends. Those throw pillows she'd made such a big deal about us needing. Even the painting over the fireplace we'd found at a street fair together. 7 years of building a life, and now every bit of it felt poisoned. I stopped in the kitchen and grabbed a pen and a piece of paper. I felt like I had to leave something, a final word. But how do you sum up the end of a marriage on a post-it note? I stood there for a long time, the pen just hovering. Finally, I wrote, I already know the truth. The key is on the table. Short, simple. It didn't leave any room for a debate. I left the note on the counter, set my key right next to it, and grabbed my suitcase. At 11:47 a.m. my phone buzzed one last time. I'm pulling into the garage. Please be there. Please. I took one last look at the place, our place, and walked out the door. I stood in the hallway with my suitcase at my side, just listening. I heard the elevator ding down the hall, then the sound of the doors opening. Footsteps. They were fast, hurried. Then they stopped. She must have seen my car in the garage. She knew I hadn't left yet. I should have gone. I should have been down the stairs and gone by then. But something kept me glued to the spot. I listened as her key turned in the lock, the door swung open, and she called out my name. Hello? Please, can we just talk? Then her voice just cut out. She'd seen the note. I heard the sound of the paper crinkling as she picked it up, and then I heard a sound I'd never heard her make before. A sharp, broken gasp that turned into a sob. No, she choked out. No, no, no. Please. I closed my eyes. Every bone in my body told me to turn around and get on that elevator. But my brother's voice was still in my head, telling me I owed it to myself to have the conversation. Before I could talk myself out of it, I opened the door and walked back in. She spun around. She was still in that red dress from the night before, but her makeup was a mess and her hair was all over the place. She didn't look anything like that radiant woman from the Instagram photos. She looked like a wreck. You're here, she breathed, starting to move toward me. I held up my hand to stop her. Don't. She froze, still clutching the note. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? My voice sounded way colder than I expected. You already told me everything on the phone. You slept with him. It was a mistake. Stop. I stepped further into the room but kept plenty of space between us. I don't want to hear about mistakes. I want to know how we got here. How my wife of 7 years decided an affair was a good idea. She flinched at the word affair. It wasn't an affair. It was one night. One terrible decision. One night that you planned, I said. I pulled out my phone and held up the screenshots. The spa, the hotel, the dinner. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. You set this up. Her face just collapsed. The spa was a work thing. A team-building thing. The dinner was supposed to be for everyone. And the hotel was nearly $500 for a luxury suite. I finished for her. Not exactly what you book if you're just too tired to drive 20 minutes home. She slumped down onto the couch and put her head in her hands. Everything just spiraled, she whispered. The dinner went late, people started heading out, and then it was just a few of us. We had way too much wine. Julian thought we should head to the hotel bar, and I know I should have walked away. I know I should have just come home, but I didn't want the night to be over. Why? I asked, and the word felt raw coming out of my throat. Why didn't you want to come home to me? She looked up, her face a mess of tears. Because when I'm around you, I feel like I'm failing, she said. Like I'm not the same woman you married. I'm putting in 80 hours a week. I'm stressed out of my mind, and every time I walk through that door, you look at me like you're disappointed in who I've become. That hit me like a physical blow. That's not fair. I've been behind you on every choice you've made. The promotion, the long hours, all of it. You've tolerated it, she cut in. There's a big difference. Every time I have to stay late, you give me that look. Every time I have to miss a dinner or cancel on you, you say it's fine, but I can feel how much you resent me for it. So you went and found someone who thinks you're a rock star, I said, unable to hide the bitterness. Is that what Julian is? Just someone to puff up your ego? He listens to me, she said softly. When I talk about my work, my ideas, or where I want to go in my career, he actually gets excited. He's into it. He doesn't make me feel like I'm ditching my marriage for my job. That's because he's got nothing at stake in this marriage. I was shouting by now, and any sense of calm I had left was out the window. It's real easy to be supportive when you aren't the one sitting at home, wondering if your wife is lying in a ditch somewhere. It's easy to be excited about someone's career when you get to be the fun distraction instead of the guy living the actual life with her. She was fully breaking down now, her whole body shaking. I know, she sobbed. I know you're right, and I hate myself for what I did. I've just been so lost lately. I felt so disconnected from everything. And for a few hours last night, I actually felt like myself again. Oh, so this is on me? I asked. I made you feel so lonely that you had no choice but to go sleep with someone else? No. She looked up, her eyes red and puffy. It's not your fault. It's mine. I made the call. I'm the one who blew everything up. I'm just trying to tell you why. I want you to understand. I don't want to understand. I grabbed the handle of my suitcase. I don't want to hear about your stress or how disconnected you feel. You know what people do when they feel disconnected from their marriage? They talk to their husband. They ask to go to counseling. They put in the work together. They don't go and screw some guy from the office. The air in the room felt heavy after I said that. I never swear at her. In 7 years, I'd never even raised my voice like that. I'll quit, she said, sounding desperate. I'll walk away from the company today. I'll never see him again. We can move, we can go somewhere new and start over. And what about 6 months from now? Or 5 years? When you start feeling disconnected again because some other guy knows how to say the right things. I shook my head. I can't spend my whole life waiting for the next time this happens. It won't happen again. I swear to you. I love you. I know I haven't shown it, and I know I took you for granted, but I love you more than anything. If that were true, you would have been in our bed last night. I started heading for the door. You would have sent a text to let me know you were safe. You would have done literally anything except what you did. Please. She stood up and reached out for me. Don't give up on us. Not this way. We can get through this. Other people do it. Maybe some couples do, I told her. But you know what they have that we don't? Trust. And you set that on fire. Every time you have to work late from now on, I'm going to be wondering. Every time you're on your phone or 5 minutes late getting home, I'm going to be wondering. That's not a marriage. That's a prison. So that's it. Her voice cracked. 7 years and you're just walking out? You walked out last night, I said quietly. I'm just the one making it official. I opened the door, and this time she didn't try to stop me. But as I stepped out into the hallway, I heard her voice one last time. Small, broken, and fading. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't turn back. Me too, I whispered. I drove for 3 hours before I finally had to pull over. It all hit me at once on a long stretch of highway somewhere between the city and my brother's place. The weight of what I'd done, what she'd done, and everything we'd both just lost. I sat there in the parking lot of some random rest stop and just let myself fall apart. 7 years. Gone. Just like that.